Hello, my name is Matthew Galluzzo, and I'm a federal criminal defense attorney here in New York City. I've been a defense attorney for about 15 years, and prior to that, for about 7 years, I was a Manhattan prosecutor. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about the very common federal charge that's 18 USC Section 924C. It is the possession of a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence or a drug trafficking crime. Now, I've represented many people charged with this crime in federal court. I'm just going to give a brief introduction of what this charge is about and some of the things that might come up if you're charged with this crime. Now, this crime of 18 USC 924C is the possession or use of a firearm in furtherance of either a crime of violence or a drug trafficking crime. Now, the drug trafficking crimes, we've discussed those in a previous video. That's 21 USC 841. That covers most of the federal drug trafficking crimes. And so if you use, carry, or possess a firearm at some point in the course of trafficking in narcotics along with others, or perhaps even by yourself, then you're also going to be potentially facing this 924C charge. Now, as far as crimes of violence are concerned, at the federal level, you tend to see crimes like Hobbs Act robberies or perhaps homicides as the crime of violence underlying this 924C charge. Now, this charge has very significant penalties. It carries with it a minimum of 5 years, but it can also carry 7 or 10, depending on how the firearm is used or possessed. Simply possessing a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence or the distribution of drugs will get you 5 years consecutive to the other charge, whether that be the crime of violence or the drug trafficking charge. If you were to brandish the firearm, which is to say to show it to your victim, or to make a claim that you're carrying it, or to threaten somebody with it, that will get you 7. And if you discharge the firearm, which is to say shoot it or fire it, then you'll get 10 years consecutive to whatever other crime you're charged with, in this case, the crime of violence or the drug trafficking crime. So there are very significant penalties associated with this charge. Now, you may think that using or carrying or possessing is a very sort of strict definition, but it's really much more expansive than you might think. You know, sometimes people get arrested in the course of a drug trafficking investigation, and they get charged with a 924C, and they ask themselves, "But how is this possible? I didn't have a firearm on me when I was arrested. In fact, I never even carried one at all." Well, you know, possession isn't just about having it in your pocket or in your car. It can really include just having access to it. I mean, right now I'm not at home, but I possess everything at home. And even if I loan my car to someone else, I still possess that car. I still have access to it. It's still mine. And then sometimes what you see, especially in gang contexts or in criminal organizations, sometimes the group shares a firearm. And if it can be shown that this particular person had access to the group's firearm, even if he never actually carried it, even if he actually never really used it in the course of one of the other crimes, you could say very loosely that he possessed it sufficiently so to be charged with this 924C charge. Now, sometimes when it comes down to plea bargaining, you'll see people who have discharged a firearm plead guilty to brandishing or possessing. That way they avoid getting 10 years consecutive, they get 7 or 5. And that's quite common to have sort of negotiated plea deals where people take a step down from whatever it is they're charged with. But keep in mind that whatever crime, whatever type of 924C you plead guilty to, it's going to be sentenced, that sentence will be imposed consecutive to the other sentence that you receive in the case. So if you were to get a sentence of 5 years for distributing narcotics, and then you take a 924C possession, it might be 5 plus the 5, making 10. Now, this is your second time being charged with a 924C, which is to say if you've been previously convicted of a 924C in your life and you're facing a new charge, entirely new case involving a 924C, well, then the penalties go way up. Now we start talking about 25 years just for the 924C by itself. And it can even be a life sentence in some cases if it's a certain type of firearm, like a machine gun. So repeat offenders at 924C face enormous potential penalties. Now, I've represented a lot of people very successfully in these types of charges and these types of cases. If you or a loved one have been charged with a 924C crime, along with some other crime of violence or a crime involving distribution of narcotics, please give me a call. We're here at 212-344-5180. We practice primarily in the federal courts in New York City. and White Plains, but we also do go to New Jersey and to Connecticut.